Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening for the LexSeeHer speaker series. Tonight, we welcome you to a town-wide celebration of International Women's Day. My name is Helen Liu, and I'm the Programming and Partnerships Manager at Cary Library. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank the Cary Library Foundation. Their support enables us to bring programs like today's event to you. I'd also like to thank LexSeeHer for their partnership on this program. This program is being recorded and will be posted to the library's YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please post them into the Q&A. I'd also like to mention that the next LexSeeHer Speaker Series event will take place virtually on March 30th. We will be speaking with Ellen Cassidy, founder of the 9 to 5 movement. Please register at carylibrary.org. Now I'd like to welcome our host, Martha Leticia. Martha, I will now pass the mic to you to host and introduce our guests for this evening.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Martha Leticia, and my co-host is Betty Go, and joining us is also Jessie Steigerwald. And I want to just start by saying that we are part of LexSeeHer, and we are all here together to celebrate International Women's Day and celebrate women's accomplishments. LexSeeHer is a nonprofit organization that works to make women visible in Lexington. Our focus is on women, but we welcome people of all genders. The mission of LexSeeHer is to make the contribution of women visible in Lexington. Our town is the stage of a critical chapter in American history and democracy, but Lexington's public monuments only tell half of our story. Therefore, we are working to make our history inclusive and to recognize the important contributions women have made to Lexington. International Women's Day is a global celebration of the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action and accelerating gender parity. We can all challenge gender stereotypes, call out discrimination, draw attention to bias, and seek out inclusion. Collective activism is what drives change, from grassroots actions to wide-scale momentum. We can all embrace equity, and to truly embrace it means to deeply believe, value, and seek out differences as a necessary and positive element of life. It means to understand the journey required to achieve women's equality. This year's theme for Women's Day is Embrace Equity. What's equity? According to the dictionary, equity is the quality of being just, fair, and impartial. It refers to fairness and justice, meaning that we do not all start from the same place, and must acknowledge and make adjustment to imbalances, whereas equality means providing the same to all. Taking gender bias out of the way, we work and live every day, giving everyone equal access to opportunities, as well as making sure our welcome recognizes and promotes everyone equally. We are all in a journey to gender equality, and today is our time to celebrate and share how we embrace our journey for equality. We have with us speakers that are going to talk about their experiences in their field and how they have dealt with this issue. We have with us State Representative Michelle Ciccolo, Lexington Police Officer Elizabeth Brady, Lexington Lieutenant Detective Colleen Dunbar, Reverend and Mason of First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Lexington, Islam educator Amber Iqbal, and Lexington Chief Equity Officer Hemali Shah. And I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Jessie Steigerwald.
Happy International Women's Day to everyone who's here. Really excited and wish everyone who's been involved with LexSeeHer a happy 3rd anniversary. We kicked off as an organization with 12 people starting out and a group of Girl Scouts on March 8th, 2020. And we had this vision to bring a new monument to Lexington. And I'm so happy to be on the screen with Betty, who was our original co-chair with me, and Martha, Leticia, and Amber, who wore similar outfits to what you see me wearing today, to think about the 70-year struggle that women engaged in America in order for women to have the right to vote. I'm wearing my I voted sticker. And obviously, we just had our election in Lexington, and I was really encouraged by my mom at a young age to always remember the shoulders that we are standing on, because we would not be able to vote as women in America if other people had not made a concerted effort, as was just described, in organizing and sticking one's neck out. Racism in America is embedded in the founding of our country, as is sexism, patriarchy, and misogyny. Those are just facts. So bringing a monument to Lexington has been a really cheerful project in that backdrop, and it's been incredible to have so many people get involved. Before we jump in and hear from the women on the screen who share their contemporary experiences, we wanted to just remind people that of the 20 and more women in the permanent monument, some of the women in the monument, in fact, most of them, were trailblazers in their times. So whether it was the 1700s, when Anna Harrington hosted and organized a political protest using spinning wheels to defy her king and protest unjust taxation on land that Reverend Mason is now the steward for, or if it was Ellen Adelia Stone, who in 1887 was the first woman elected to a townwide office in the school committee, or if it was 1956, decades later, when Ruth Morey was the first woman elected to the select board, or flash forward to 1987, when Marge Batten was the first woman elected to town moderator. We know that we were asked what it means to be first, and whether that a woman being first at something necessarily meant she was worthy of recognition. But I know tonight I'll be listening to hear from women who describe what it is like to be a woman in a profession or field that has been dominated by men. And even today, those challenges are considerable. I'm so excited to hear from our panelists.
So to start, first we have State Representative Michelle Ciccolo, who has devoted her career to public service. She has worked in municipal government, worked as executive in municipal government, held leadership positions in regional planning, has been a contributor to state boards as well as commissions, and is the first woman to represent the 15th Middlesex District. Michelle, please.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Jesse. It's really terrific to be here with all of you this evening. This is such an important topic as we find ways to support one another and lift each other up. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from all the other panelists as well. So as we reflect on International Women's Day, I started my thought process by thinking about how much better things are here in the United States than they are around the world, where the treatment of women is deplorable in many countries. And I wanted to give some thanks and gratitude to how far we've come. But then as my thoughts advanced, I had to pause and think about some of the hurdles I've had to overcome and the journey that I've taken and how much farther we still have to go. And I'm going to share a few facts and figures with you and some stories. And then I don't know if we have an opportunity later after all the panelists go for some questions, but would love to participate in that as well. So as Martha mentioned, I'm the first female elected rep. There were senators, but I was the first rep, and I was shocked to learn that. I thought for sure there must have been many other women that had been state reps from the town of Lexington, where we are such a liberal and progressive community. How could there not have been many more women? But it would shock you if you learned some of the statistics. Again, we pride ourselves in Massachusetts on being progressive and liberal. And so I'll just share with you that nationwide, the percentage of women that serve in state legislatures is only at 32.7%. So I thought, well, they've got a ways to go. We must be doing even better here in Massachusetts. What's our percentage? We're actually at 31.5%. So we're not even meeting the national average here in Massachusetts. There have been over 20,000 different male colleagues of mine who have served in the state legislature since the founding of our state. I wish I could ask you all to guess the number of women that have served compared to the 20,000. But I will tell you, it is a surprising number. It's actually only 234. Out of the 20,000, there have been 234. So I am number 199. We actually have this data up on the website of the Women's Caucus that I serve on, because it's an important reminder of, first of all, how far we've come, but also how far we have yet to go. So I mentioned that I'm a member of the Women's Caucus. We also have a statewide commission on the status of women. That's a really important organization that helps fight for equity and justice for women in politics and government, and for all the women in the Commonwealth. And that's an important opportunity to hear from different parts of the state what needs to be addressed. And it really gives us a lot of insight into policy work. But today's theme of embrace equity has me thinking more about the disparity that's even greater when it comes to the Black and Brown sisters of ours and their representation in halls of power and on boards, corporate boards, and elsewhere in society. And in fact, the disparate outcomes their lives have because of the unfair and unjust opportunities that they don't have access to like white women do. And one of the things we do in the Women's Caucus is we have something called the Birth Justice Task Force to look at, the disparities in maternal health outcomes. We have a series of legislative priorities that help us try to close the gaps for all women, but especially for women of color, which I think is something that we're really making a strong effort to focus on, with a data-driven approach to understand where the discrepancies are and what changes need to be made. And that's very exciting work, and I'm glad to be a part of it. As I think a little bit also about my role and my responsibility, I spend a tremendous amount of time mentoring young women that come forward to be involved in politics and government. And that's part of embracing equity, is making sure that we're giving a hand up to other women that want to be in this field. It's not easy. And, one of the things that gives me great joy is that we now have more women getting college degrees than men. So we've made huge progress. But to share an absurd story with you, when I first graduated from college, I was thinking about wanting to go into politics and policy work and exploring graduate programs. And so I applied to the University of Pennsylvania. I wanted to go to their, get a master's at their public policy degree program. And I was called in for an interview. And I will never forget this interview for the rest of my life. The man who interviewed me asked me why I wanted to go to graduate school there, and started asking me a number of kind of personal questions, and proceeded to say that, he wanted to know what my parents did and why, but then proceeded to say, well, I have an Italian heritage, and he thought my father, he's got a chip on his shoulder, and you only really want to go here probably because you're looking to find a husband. And this is in this day and age. I was absolutely shocked. I mean, he spouted off a series of prejudiced remarks and sexist remarks, and I thought, wow. So one of the questions we were asked is, what advice would you give to young women when they're trying to consider some of these fields? And one of the things I would say is be perseverant, show up, continue to don't let anything stand in your way, continue to try to pursue your goals with absolute dogged determination, because sometimes it is going to be harder being a female. I've told stories before, I think last year, and I don't want to repeat some of the stories, but in the halls of power, you're often assumed to be, your voice isn't heard like the men's voice might be heard. I might say the same thing a colleague will say, but they'll repeat it and they'll get the attention and the focus and the credit for something I just said in the same meeting earlier that same day, for instance. Or it might come out a week later or a month later, ideas and legislations that I've submitted, and a man will pick up the concept and run with it. And you really have to have thick skin to be a politician and a female politician, and you have to maintain your sense of confidence in yourself, even when it can be hard and you get discouraged. You have to have faith that what you're doing is going to help other women and help advance equity, and you have to just keep at it and keep going. I'm not sure how long I've gone on for, and I think I probably need to stop. So I'll leave it at that and say that I'm just thrilled to hear from everybody else. It's a wonderful panel, and I'm really grateful to be invited to speak today. And I appreciate the work that LexSeeHer and all of you are doing. Thanks.
Well, thank you for all your remarks. And now we go to Lexington Police Officer Elizabeth Brady. She served for 9 years in the Army National Guard for the state of Massachusetts prior to being a police officer. She is a mother of a daughter, and now we are with her. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. My name, as she said, is Elizabeth Brady. I started working in Lexington in 2020, became a police officer. Before that, I was served in the Army for 9 years. And now I have a 1-year-old daughter, turns 1 on Sunday. It's been a very eye-opening experience, both being in the Army and as a police officer. But it's also been extremely rewarding, probably more rewarding than I had ever planned. I've had a lot of different opportunities to work with people from all walks of life. I go to all sorts of service calls, ranging from barking dogs to domestic violence, and you wear all sorts of hats. The people I work with have been phenomenal in guiding me and giving me all sorts of advice. I've learned a lot in just a short amount of time. I think coming from being in the Army and working as a police officer, they both have similarities, but they're also vastly different. You work with people from all over, and it does add to the experience. Some challenges that you face. I'm a small statured woman, so my height definitely doesn't help, but you learn ways around that. And the training that I've been through and has helped me to overcome the challenges that I face. I've been to all sorts of trainings. The most recent one was one for overcoming size differences for women. So it was all women came together and you trained for 3 days straight. You got to go home at the end of the day, but you came back and every morning it was both in classroom and then it was hands-on. So there was an instructor that came from, I believe it was Minnesota, and she trains women all over the United States. And so you got to learn from her, which is awesome, and speak to officers from all over the Commonwealth. And we all face similar challenges in our job, and to have that and to come together was awesome. What's something that you wish someone had told you before you entered a male-dominated workforce? I would say keep a positive attitude, because there's going to be people that they can be very blunt, but they mean well. And if you keep a positive attitude and you grab life by the horns and charge forward, you can really get to where you need to be. So
Elizabeth, you had told me that, or I had asked you once how it felt being in the minority in an all male-dominated workforce. How has it been at the police department, being one of the few women?
So I feel like I bring a whole bunch of diversity to the department. I mean, meaning that So there's several females that also I work with. Most are in different positions. I'm the only female patrol officer on most of the time. We have a female sergeant as well, who's on typically at nights. But my life experience, along with my service and customer service background, I think has helped greatly. Before I went into the Army and before I became a police officer, I worked in corporate America. So you learn a whole bunch of customer service skills that I've learned to apply to this job as well. I'm going to pass this off now to my colleague, Lieutenant Dunbar.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. Next we have Lieutenant Detective Colleen Dunbar, who started as a police officer in 1994 as a cadet while attending Northeastern University. She has served in many roles during her career prior to her current position as the first female command staff member of the police department. Thank you, Colleen, please.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with all these other great females that we have here in Lexington. When I started in the 90s, it wasn't the case that we got to interact like this. So it's great as time's gone by that we have been able to experience other females in the town of Lexington and in the community. So like I said, like you mentioned, I've worked here since 1994. It's been a long time. I was lucky when I started that Lexington was one of the few departments around that actually did have some female officers working. There was actually 5 females when I started. So it was great to be able to have that female connection when I got here. Again, that's not the case in other towns. We would be called upon all the time on patrol that we would need to go do a search for another department because they didn't have any females. Could we speak to a sexual assault victim? So women in policing has increased greatly in the last 25 years, which is a positive sign. And just to give some statistics on women in policing in general, the national average, it's 13% female officers in the profession. So that's obviously small. We're working on that. There's a initiative called the 30 for 30 initiative, which many departments in the country and Lexington is signing on. Proud to say today that we're going to be participating and pledging that by 2030, that we pledge to try to have 30% of the workforce be female. So that's something that we're working on, an exciting step to try to get more females involved in this career. As far as being a female in the police culture, there's been, like I said, there's been some positive changes. The younger generations of officers are much more receptive, and I actually think they prefer having females as bosses. I think they take it much better. And 4 ways that female officers, which was brought in by a special report by the Institute of Justice on Women in Policing. The main one, which I think is the most important, women are less likely to use excessive force, and this has been found statistically to be true. Female officers have forever, as far as size-wise and having to encounter with encounters, female officers are used to having to use de-escalation, which obviously that's what is being taught in police departments right now. It's so important. But as a female officer, you've done that from the start because with your size difference, you have had to try to de-escalate situations. You put yourself using verbal communication. That's the way that you get connections with people. So female officers in general are actually better at that. And I think that is, people recognize that what an important tool de-escalation is and being able to communicate. So there's a lot of positive things that female officers bring to the table. I think there's some disadvantages. Back in the day, there was not any female uniforms. The equipment was not designed for females. We now have female ballistic vests. They're making female uniforms, things like that. So it's definitely, it's such a positive, and for me, fulfilling to see how many younger women, people like Liz that we have that are coming in positive and having such an impact on the department. So I think, what can I do as a female command staff member? Being the only one, it was difficult in the beginning. I think the perception comes across that when a female is come to power, it's kind of viewed negatively. Some of the senior officers don't always like that. So you have to create your own style of leadership. I think we've done a good job. I've tried to really step up and become that positive commanding officer. One of the things most importantly now that we can do is, now that I'm in this position, how do we get, it's great that we're getting more female officers, but we need more female command staff. There's very few female chiefs, there's very few female command staff. So how do we increase that? How do we get women to get to that next step? There's all positive shifts that are taking place in Massachusetts. There's the Massachusetts Association of Women in Law Enforcement, and they're doing a mentorship program, and they're really encouraging, we're having this connection that we did not have before. So it's such a positive step in Massachusetts, especially. We've had women in leadership training over the last year, thanks to the increase in training budget for the Municipal Training Committee. So it's really such a positive, I really feel like we're at an upswing and that we just keep this going. So I think going into a male dominated field, and one thing I learned when I went in, I was young and I just wanted to fit in and be part of the department. So be yourself. You don't need to fit that mold. You bring your own special qualities and your own skills that you don't need to try to be one of the guys or just to fit in. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, be yourself and go for it. And I think that's an important message to get across to younger females who are looking into this profession. But I know my time's probably up, so I thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Detective. And with us, we have Reverend Ann Mason, who has served as a senior minister of First Parish Unitarian Universalist for 7 years. She is the second woman to do so since its founding. Prior to ministry, she was a classical singer and voice teacher. And with that, she brings her artistic sensibilities to sacred settings. She brings social justice to the center of her work. She is part of the executive board of the Lexington Interfaith Community Association. Reverend, please.
Thank you so much, Martha. I was called into ministry with First Parish in Lexington on May 1st, 2016. It was a thrilling moment when the congregation voted to call me as their minister in a relationship that we call a settled ministry, meaning that I am here as long as we mutually feel that it is beneficial. The congregation went through many steps to help me feel welcome. The one that I want to share this evening is about the plaque just inside the front steps. On this plaque is inscribed the names of all the ministers who have served the church since 1696, starting with John Hancock and Jonas Clark, who each served for 50 years. The list is long, 20 men. And then comes the name of the Reverend Helen Lutton Cohen, their first female minister, who served for 22 wonderful years. Following her are 2 more men. And then inscribed in gold paint at the bottom of the list is my name. It really made me take stock of my role as a woman in this field of ministry. Not only is First Parish's history long and illustrious, it was primarily shaped by men. Now, my mother was a strong feminist, a woman who, when she didn't get into medical school after college, accepted a teaching job in Istanbul, teaching biology to Turkish girls. So my older sisters followed in her footsteps, and we were members of the Episcopal Church in a small village in upstate New York. And at that time, girls were not allowed to be acolytes, the children who help with communion and carry the cross in the processional. Well, that soon changed when we moved into town. I loved serving the church and being an acolyte, and yet the ministers were all men. So I never saw anyone who looked like me in positions of authority. But church was very important to me, and I felt the religious impulse in my early life, but I never knew what to do with it. But in high school, I attended something astounding. The ordination of a woman in the Episcopal Church was the Reverend Beverly Messenger Harris. She was the first Episcopalian woman called to be the minister of an Episcopal church. And I still remember how amazing it was to see her wearing the stole and vestments of ecclesiastical authority. I remember thinking, I could do that someday. My friends, the roles that we take, the work that we do, it's important. It is important for all the girls who look at us and think to themselves, I could do that someday. And it's important for those girls who look and think, I might not want to do that particular work, but she has a voice. Maybe I can have a voice too. As a woman in ministry, I am aware that some denominations still refuse to ordain women. In my Unitarian Universalist denomination, women have actually become the majority of ministers, but we still struggle for equity. The majority of our larger congregations are still served by male ministers, but we now have a woman as the head of our denomination. So things are shifting. I am aware that as the ministry becomes more defined by women, it is seen as more of a helping profession and less as a scholarly one. As Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So now we can focus on the head and the heart. Equality in my profession looks like women like me finding our own way to be ourselves and to be ministers. It looks like us choosing not to be like the men who came before us, but to find our own authentic styles of ministry. And in this way, bringing our own true gifts to the people that we work with. I find myself as one who comes alongside the people with whom I minister, rather than standing above them as one with authority. I interject compassion with scholarship and a thirst for justice. And I hope that my ministerial presence offers a pathway for spiritual strength for many kinds of people. I try to encourage my congregation to develop their own inner strengths while we're working on building new structural pathways to overturn the oppressions inherent in a historically white and male-dominated faith tradition. My ministry is to encourage everyone to listen to the deep truth within themselves, to connect to our vision of the highest good, and to find ways to live a life in fulfillment of these goals. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. And now we welcome Islam educator Amber Iqbal, who came to the United States from Pakistan. She's the mother of 3, as well as a religious educator. She has taught the Quran for 18 years and has her own YouTube channel, helping Muslims and non-Muslims understand Islam better. She speaks at churches, temples, and synagogues about Islam in order to break stereotypes and clear up misconceptions. Amber, please.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Iqbal. Thank you for introducing me, Martha. And I'm originally from Pakistan, and I was born in a very conservative family, both religiously and politically. My parents ran an Islamic school, so my initial upbringing of Islam was influenced by my family. My love for Islam started at a very young age. I started to wear hijab when I was only 8 years old, willingly though. And by the age of 15, I was so good at reading Quran that I started teaching it to my neighborhood kids, and I had about 20 students. My parents had always had this view that girls should be married at a very young and peak age, which really means the sooner the better. So all my siblings, myself too, I got married at the age of 20. Since my husband's family is Indian, and I told you guys earlier, I'm originally from Pakistan, which is, by the way, is a very sensitive topic to grasp, because if you know that both of these countries have been bitter enemies for a very long time. And in fact, my dad is from the Pakistani Navy, and he has actually fought wars with India. So giving his daughter to a family who is from India, I cannot even imagine the pressure he must have felt from the family and from colleagues and everybody. But what I am today, I give a lot of credit to him for his strength and the strength he transferred to me to always be strong on what you believe in. And especially when, you know, the different places that you are and the people, it does not define people of where you are from. It's actually who the people are actually is what is more important. Coming here into this family and coming into the US and settling here was not an easy feat. My family, who I got, my in-laws, were quite non-religious and very secular. And a lot of times I was also called a fob by my own acquaintances, which means fresh out of boat, because of the way I spoke or I dressed. Life as a woman is already not easy. And being an immigrant woman, trying to find my place in the US was another very difficult thing. My advocacy for a strong Muslim woman voice in Lexington did not start until 2019, when a terrorist attack in the 2 mosques of New Zealand shook the entire Muslim world. What happened was during that time, these very strong leaders, especially these women leaders, came in and stepped forward, and they wanted to host a vigil for these victims, and I'm truly blessed today to find that I had found love, friendship, and comfort among these fellow women like Jessie Steigerwald and Ann Mason and Valerie Overton, Mona Roy, Ragni Patak, and all these amazing women who came and rushed to my comfort and held this vigil for the Muslims. And I was very new to all of this. I had no idea how to speak in public. I had no idea who to reach out to. I did not know anything about the town officials. I did not know how to, how to have a strong voice. But these people actually, these women actually guided me step by step and helped me through all these challenges. They took me under their wing and taught me how to fight for my rights and be a strong Muslim woman voice that lacks today in our community. I would be lying if I say that a strong Muslim woman voice does not come with its own set of challenges, especially by our own fellow men, because there's a stereotype about Muslim men being very dominant in the society, which I would not lie if I'm saying that it's not true. It comes with its own set of challenges, and I face that challenge every single day in the field of work that I am in, and but there's one quote of Malala that I truly cherish, and I really keep telling myself, and something that she said, that we realize the importance of our voice when we are silenced. So this is something that keeps making me move forward, to keep making me break all those stereotypes and keep talking about what is right and how to represent as a strong Muslim woman in Lexington. Today, I'm not afraid of being brown. I'm not afraid of being a proud Muslim. And most of all, I'm not afraid of who I am, which is a strong woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. And to finish our talk today is Lexington Chief Equity Officer, Hemali Shah. who is a licensed social worker. She attended the University of Massachusetts Lowell to obtain her master's degree. She has demonstrated a commitment to advancing equity and creating a more just and inclusive organization. She served previously as the Senior Services Director for the town of Lexington, where she helped expand services for older adults. She is dedicated to creating a more equitable and inclusive organization and to drive change in our community.
Thank you.
Hemali, please.
Thank you, Martha. I'm very excited to be here and wow, to follow all these amazing women. It's amazing. So I'm the first generation South Asian American. My parents immigrated here in the 70s. They came here because I'm one of 3 girls, which in India and that culture, it's not frowned upon, but not really celebrated, because girls, not having a son, you're sort of stopping the lineage of carrying on the name. So my parents immigrated here to give us all a chance to be independent and pursue our lives the way that we want to do it. Being a social worker is also something that's not really seen in the South Asian culture. We're often pushed to do the STEM field. So it's pretty unique for me to be in this position in local government. Local government and nonprofit is pretty female dominated. So I think my challenge is not the male domination, it's really being in a white space, right? It's local government, particularly historically, has been governed by white individuals. And when I started in 2015 in town of Lexington as the senior services coordinator, I was one of very few staff of color. I felt that, I saw that, I noticed that. I was also serving a population of Lexington that was also predominantly white, our older adults. And so I've experienced those questions, the little microaggressions, and sort of, where are you from? And I would say Waltham. It's like, no, where are you really from? It's Waltham. So I've grown as a professional, having worked in Lexington, and I've embraced who I am as a person of color, working in local government, not even just Lexington, local government. To have that identity is pretty unique. And I've come a long way. I've come into being a chief equity officer. I've been in this position for 4 months. And I was approached for this position because I was seen as someone who brings a lot of value and skills in doing this work. It's exciting to be in this role because I'm doing what we're talking about, right? Helping have a community that's really equitable and inclusive. So women like Umber can also be included and heard. And I'm so happy that she's here and talking about her experience. Because as a staff member, it's hard to be a community voice. I can only be a voice of our staff. And it's difficult. It's a difficult journey to have gone this far, because as much as I'm working with women who are empowering and supportive, there's still white women who don't have that experience of being marginalized for a minority identity. And to have that ownership and the burden of being the person who teaches or monitors behaviors and points that out is a lot of work. It's emotionally tolling to constantly be the one teaching. And so it's been amazing to have the support in town from the women who are there to not put that pressure on me and really be allies in doing this work with me and helping our organization change and help me be a better individual when I serve the community, to be that person, right? And not make anyone feel that their identity makes them different. We, at the end of the day, are all human beings. Our identities make us unique in a really positive way in what we bring to either our work life, our personal lives. And I hope to really continue doing that and have these conversations with just anyone in the community and in my work. Similar to Liz, I have a 14-month-old daughter. So the work that I do and will continue to do is to set an example for her that you could do whatever you want. We're not restricted to our cultures of South Asian culture, following the STEM field. Be a social worker, be a dancer, be a chef, do whatever makes you happy at the end of the day. You're not bound by the stereotypes that you hear of your identities in the community. You're free to do and follow your path as you choose. It's local government, I think, teaches me a lot, and pushing myself out of my comfort zone and embracing my uniqueness. It's taken me a really long time to feel comfortable doing that. I attend a lot of conferences. When I started with this work, I attended a lot of trainings and conferences, and the first thing I would do is see how many women of color were in that space. Over the years, there have been more and more women of color in the spaces that I am participating in, but I always do that just to see where the growth is and what are the perspectives that are being brought in, not to just value the perspectives of white women. I have amazing partners in that, but it's nice to see that the spaces that were historically white have started to really embrace and accept and collaborate with different identities. And it sets such a positive tone in the work that we have to do, and not feel negative or that you're sort of a token minority, or you're just sort of checking off a box for the places that you work in. So yeah, it's been a long journey, and the advice that I would give women of color is find your allies, whether it's white women or women of color. Find your allies who will support you, who will give you the confidence that you need to pursue whatever dream you're pursuing. I'm going to tell you, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to pursue your career, especially if you're trying to break the glass ceiling. It takes a village to help you do that. So lean in and find that support in whatever journey you're taking. I'll leave it at that because I really want to have people ask questions and us be able to answer that. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Hemali. And I want to thank all of our speakers and people attending. If you have any questions, please write them on the Q&A so we can ask our panelists. Thank you very much.
We do have one question about, and maybe each one of you, the panelists, can answer, is like, what is your best strategy when you're feeling overwhelmed or challenged?
Let's go with Representative Ciccolo. Can you answer our question?
It's a great question, because I think especially in today's fast-paced, crazy world, we often all feel overwhelmed. So many different things going on. And I think it's really important to look at your objective and work backwards. I actually find breaking things down into smaller tasks and identifying people I can partner with to move things forward helps you tackle something that might seem enormous initially. Just little bits at a time, trying to realize you don't have to solve all the problems of the world today. You just need to get to the next step. Just do the one step that brings you forward. And I think that's really important for all women, because so often we want to be the person that does solve the problem. And we can't be expected to solve everybody's problems, but we can make progress by just taking baby steps, one step forward at a time.
Thank you very much. Reverend, do you have another idea or another point to that?
So one of the things that I'm trying to work on for myself is the concept of self-care, to make sure that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, that I actually step back for a little while. And I took up a yoga practice last year. I had a 4-month sabbatical, and I went and became a trained yoga teacher, and practicing the breathing as a spiritual path, but also as a way to give myself permission to say, I don't have to do this right now. Let me make sure that I am in a good space and finding my own equilibrium. And then when I look at the problem, it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Thank you, Reverend. Hemali, do you have any pointers for us?
I'm going to follow Reverend Mason and just say, it's really just stepping back and doing something that brings you joy, right? finding that happy space and then coming back to whatever task that you have at hand. For me, it's stepping back and playing with my daughter. She's such a feisty little human being right now that I turn around and I just smile looking at her, and that centers me to going back to the craziness that's awaiting me on the other end. But just, yeah, step back, take a break, step back, and breathe. Just breathe, find a moment of joy, and then come back to it. Work never ends. There's always something to do. It never ends. So don't miss out on the moments that truly bring you joy in the moment of chaos and stress and anxiety.
Thank you, Hemali. So Amber, what can you tell us about this?
So first of all, my faith is very important to me. And what I find that relaxes me the most is actually my 5 times prayer throughout the day. It just disconnects me from the world for that 3-4 minutes of the day and just be me and God and pour out my problems to him and just, breathe in, because prayers is basically a time for me to just breathe in. And having 3 children at very different age groups is very challenging. And on top of that, doing all this work is also difficult. And then on top of that, doing work among men is especially very difficult when it comes to religious things that we have to do. But yeah, my faith. And then secondly, there's another thing that I actually learned pretty recently is that I'm one of those people who love to take control. Like Michelle just said, I like to get the things done because I get very antsy when somebody else is not doing it or doesn't have the same passion as me. And I was like, I can get this done, but I need to give myself some time to breathe in. Not everybody is at the same level where I am, because I started somewhere too. And I have to give the other person that time to learn. And I have to be more patient in teaching that person to get to the level where I am today, because it took me a long time to be here too. So that is something I'm working on. I'm trying to train people to actually women. I'm trying to train women within my own community, Muslim community, to have that strong voice. And for that strong voice, again, there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to teach as well. So that is something that I'm working on.
Thank you, Amber. Detective, what can you tell us?
So I think it's important just to try to, sometimes we have a stressful day at work, especially as a mother, you come home and you're feeling overwhelmed. It's okay to take that 10, 15 minutes to yourself, get yourself collected. So when I would come home and my kids would be going crazy, I'm like, just give me 10 minutes. You don't want to feel guilty, but then you can be the best you can be after that. But you just need 10, 15 minutes downtime, especially after a stressful day at work. As a mother, you always feel like that work-life balance is such a struggle. So it's okay to take a few minutes for yourself and get yourself going so that you can get through the rest of the day.
And lastly, but not the last, please, Elizabeth.
I could also go with what Lieutenant Detective was talking about, is just you take a little bit of time for yourself, some self-care, which is what the Reverend was talking about. It's huge. I think it's really important to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, who's going through? So, but at work, I think it's important to box breathe. So this thing that they teach us in the academy, and they also teach you in the military, it's called seal breathing or box breathing. You breathe in for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you basically try to build a box. And that has helped me greatly in my line of work. So focus on breathing and putting everything into perspective. And yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank all of our speakers and thank everybody for their attention. And to conclude our presentation, I want to introduce, and it is my pleasure to introduce my friend and co-worker, Jessie Steigerwald, president of LexSeeHer. who has an update for us on the monument.
Thank you so
Jessie?
much. Thank you so much. What an amazing presentation. I know all of us listening are so grateful to Martha Leticia for hosting and for Betty Gao for organizing an incredible arrangement of amazing women in our community. For the Monument Project, we just wanted to give you a short update because it's Women's History Month. It's taken the 3 years, but we had our select board unanimously approve the monument, so it is happening. What's interesting in some of what Hemali shared and Reverend Mason, actually everyone, is that themes that we talked about tonight have been so true for women in our community back to the 1700s and 1713 when Lexington was first incorporated as a town. Sylvia Farrell Jones is one of the women in the monument, and she spent her life as a social justice advocate talking about the need to address racial injustice as well as gender injustice, as I said earlier, because both of those are really embedded in the founding of the country. As you know, colonizers, the British Empire brought racism, slavery, and the subjugation of women to the indigenous land where people were already here for 12,000 years. So it's important for all of us as we try to unpack where we are at our moment in history to be able to step back and understand whatever country you're from, wherever you may live after you live in Lexington or work in Lexington, we need to understand our place in the global perspective and global history. So Sylvia just came to my mind. What I hope will happen is people look forward to the unveiling ceremony, which we're hoping for May 15th, 2024. So save that date. As you get to know the women in the monument over the next 14 months, I think you'll find that those women have threads of the conversation we had tonight. Some of the challenges women have faced today have been faced by women for centuries, whether it's childcare. Meredith Bergman, our sculptor, has depicted women holding children in the monument trying to get their work done by candlelight when that's when they had to get it done, or women who were the first aviators. One of the women in the monument, Peggy Kimball, learned to fly an airplane on a dare from a man who said women couldn't do it. So she wanted to prove him wrong. Or Sally Harkness, who was an architect, and we have photographs of her and Jean Fletcher, two women who were the only women in the Architects Collaborative architecture firm, which I think sounds like experiences some of the women who spoke tonight have had, being the only woman in a very male environment and the challenges that can pose. But it also shows them helping take care of each other's kids at the same time. So I think we heard some themes there around allyships, sisterhoods, the kinds of neighborhood and community bonds we can all bring. So the other update we wanted to share, if you didn't get to see our last speaker series, where we talked about putting Black women on the map and the installation organized by Amelia Worthy, Celeste Freeman, and myself at Lex Art. We want to encourage people to watch it. We were so excited to make contact with Margaret Tulip's 8th generation descendants. And so you'll be able, if you were able to watch that one, to learn about Margaret Tulip, one of the central figures in the monument. And it goes actually to something Hemali said, which is a question that really can strike you very differently based on your race when someone asks where you're from. And so it was lovely having the chance for Celeste Freeman to invite Yvonne and James Goldsberry to Lexington High School, where they talked about what it feels like to be a Black woman who says, I'm from Lexington, or I'm from wherever you're from in New Hampshire, New England, Massachusetts, and to have someone question you and say, but where are you really from? And as she put it, this history going back to Margaret Tulip means she really can say, for 300 years, I'm from right here. So there's a lot of discussions that were touched on here tonight, and we hope people will get involved. We're in a fundraising phase right now. We had raised $340,000 for the monument. The foundry expenses have increased. They have almost doubled due to the pandemic. We were a little shocked, but we're not shocked because the town projects face the same increases in labor, materials, and it is the world we're in post-pandemic. So if you see hats and you see signs and you see Sweetheart campaign buttons, we hope you will consider contributing. We will have an event for those who are able to donate at a higher level, or $25. At that level, you can join a special virtual visit to Meredith Bergman's studio. And we know $25 is not within everyone's reach, But rather than extravagant ballroom or a dinner or something like that, we wanted to choose a fundraising special gift recognition, thank you, that would be educational, informative, and get as many people as possible to connect with Meredith Bergman and get a virtual look inside her studio, something that is rare indeed, and really special to get to see behind the scenes as the monument is being created. So I'm so glad for this evening, and hope people will check out LexSeeHer.com to learn more about all of the women who are recognized in the monument, and to participate if they're able in the Sweetheart campaign, and look forward very much to seeing people with Ellen Cassidy. I just want to give a plug for Ellen Cassidy in that next speaker series. If you've seen or heard about the 9 to 5 movement, if you are in a union or if you work in a place where you work with people in unions, Ellen Cassidy in 1973 was one of the founders of the 9 to 5 movement and the first labor union that was organized and run by women. And as we heard tonight, we're carrying over this Embrace Equity theme. It's amazing to hear her talk about what it was like for women to organize at that time. And we wouldn't have the sexual harassment laws we have today, or the small gains we've made in trying to establish equal pay if it hadn't been for women like Ellen. So really encourage people to come. Thank you so much. Martha, back to you.
Well, as I said, I want to thank you all for coming to hear our speakers today. I want to thank very fondly our speakers, and Karen Library goes to you.
I want to thank Jesse, Betty, and Martha Leticia for planning such a wonderful event tonight. It really has been a wonderful evening celebrating International Women's Day with all of you. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your words of support and guidance. And thank you to our audience for attending today. I hope you were inspired by these women as I have been. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy-
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye,
Good
everyone.
night. Bye.